Grumble, grumble.
Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple, and I'm coming back at you with some hot new video footage. This is cutting edge, current, modern day sensibility, reprinting Warhammer Quest 1995 card decks. Lots and lots of card decks. So let's start off kind of from the beginning. So first of all, I already own Warhammer Quest. I have a mint condition copy of the original game and of both expansions. I bought them I started looking for it about 8 or 9 years ago, and there's a store in Colorado called Black and Reed that sometimes carries some very old and kind of arcane games from the past. I found my copy of Hero Quest and the expansions there, and I found my copy of Warhammer Quest there as well. And one day, so I was relentlessly hunting this store for a couple years, and one day I went in there and they had a freaking copy of Warhammer Quest, and it was like $120 or something. So I bought it immediately. It was in perfect condition. If I remember correctly, the miniatures were off the sprues, but there's not a single bent sword or anything like that in the whole set. All the tokens are there, and all the cards are there too, which I have right here. So I've been collecting this game for a number of years. I've been slowly trying to hunt down the expansion packs for it. You can see here I have all the kind of base cards and then some of the treasure packs that I purchased off eBay as well, mixed in. And it's a good chunk of cards, and they're all like in beautiful condition. I sleeved them and everything. So basically, recently I've gotten back on the Warhammer Quest kick, and I realized that I wanted to print all of the additional cards that are out there that I don't already have. Stuff like the Dark Secrets cards and spell cards for the wizard and other spellcasters that are in like a traditional size, because in the original game the spell cards were actually like like cardboard chits, basically big cardboard chits. And so I wanted to print everything. I wanted to get it to the exact same size and kind of format and look and feel. And this has everything from all the White Dwarfs, some fan created content. It has monster table cards for levels 1 through 5, so that you don't have to go through the monster table in the game and try to hunt them down. And it's all like perfectly exactly the same. Like if you look at the original cards, let's see if we can get a good example here. Yeah. These are my original cards, and these are my printed cards. And they're slightly different. The coloration is just slightly different because these are 30 years old. And I am so anal retentive that is the kind of thing that would drive me crazy. And so instead of just printing the stuff I needed, I just printed everything. So I went on to makeplayingcards.com and spent a couple hours uploading files and making sure everything was formatted perfectly. And here's the result. Basically flawless set of 500 cards for Warhammer Quest 95. This allows me to do a couple things. So first of all, it expands my collection. There are more cards here, obviously, than there are in my original collection, because again, it contains all this really, really hard to find White Dwarf stuff that was never actually, even to my knowledge, professionally printed. It was just like cards that were in the magazine, and I despise that kind of DIY hobby thing where you're cutting cards out of magazines and stuff. It just doesn't sit with me. So I was happy to pay to get all that stuff pro printed so that it's all exactly the same and it's all gorgeous and whatnot. And then the other thing it lets me do is it lets me protect and kind of archive the original cards, because Warhammer Quest is ludicrously expensive at this point. A copy like mine could probably go for close to $1,000, and the expansions are even worse. You know, I think those expansions were like 35 pounds when they came out. The last time I looked, the Lair of the Witch Lord expansion, and I'm getting the name wrong, was something like $600 on eBay now, and I got it for, I want to say about 100, maybe like I said, like 7 years ago. So I don't want to necessarily play with this stuff anymore. I want to put it in a vault and retire off of it someday. So I decided to print my own cards. And I thought this might be useful for anybody who's out there who's ever thought about DIYing cards. But if you're like me and you're anal retentive and you cannot stand the idea of them being kind of subpar, and you're very like my motor skills are shit. Like, I could never cut these out and make it look professional. So this is a way for you to get all that old content without sacrificing the quality of it. Now, this was expensive. This was $170, I want to say, to print these card decks. Some people are going to think that that is completely insane. It probably is completely insane, especially considering I already own a lot of it. But again, to be able to put these cards back in the box and keep them in perfect condition and to add just insane amounts of content, I felt like it was worth it to just do it one time finally and be done with it. Because I've actually done this before. I printed a subset of the cards from Make Plain Cards a few years ago. And these were mostly cards that didn't require stuff that I didn't have, like miniatures. These are all event cards. So they just point you to spots in the role-playing book to roll on charts. But it's nice because you don't have to have the book like sitting out in front of you, and you don't have to roll the die. You just, you know, it just tells you, and some of them are self-contained, but some of them will say go to page 35 and roll blah blah blah. It just makes it a little bit smoother than having to have that book out and constantly be referencing it while you're rolling on it. So let's dig in here. Let's see what we got. My camera setup is a little bit weird today, but you should be able to see this just fine. Anyways, I've been on kind of a hobby rampage. My table is covered with Warhammer Quest stuff. My Silver Tower stuff is all out. I intend to get a gameplay video of that up because I really like this game. And I bought these giant protected mats, like thick rubber mats, from Hobbytown recently, and so I've turned my gaming table into a half game table, a half craft table. So the other side of the table is covered by these mats, and all my painting stuff is out there as I try to get back into painting a little bit. So it's a mess, but my cards are here, so who cares? Honestly, who gives a shit? Oh, mama. Okay. I'm not going to go through every card, obviously, because there are hundreds of them. But right off the bat, you can see, like, the number of treasure cards I have now is roughly equal to the number of total cards that I had for the original game. So this is everything. This is all the expansions, all three card packs, official card packs that came out, which are also very expensive right now. You can spend $100 just on a single pack of those. And all the White Dwarf stuff, and I want to say that there's even some Little Monk content in here. If you don't know who Little Monk is, you should find out who Little Monk is, because he is like the god king of Warhammer Quest 95 on the internet. He's been putting out content for it for years and years, and the content is of a level of quality that is virtually unrivaled, or at least I thought unrivaled, until I stumbled onto another fan creator on Board Game Geek named Peter Cooper, and he's creating content not for Warhammer Quest 95 but for Curse City. Now, Curse City is a game that I never purchased because I heard that it was kind of all fucked up, but recently I heard that this madman Peter Cooper came out of nowhere and has not only fixed it but massively expanded on it, and has a whole nother set of professional printable 3D cards and rule books and large size enemy cards and everything. He's got it all set up on a website that the name eludes me at the moment, and all you basically have to do is email these guys and say, hey, print this for me. You don't even have to like format the files yourself. He's already done that. So I bought a copy of Warhammer Quest. I got an insane deal on a copy of Curse City for $130 from Boarding School Games, which is kind of one of my secret shops. If you don't know about that website, their prices are ludicrous. And I'm printing all this content out, or I'm gonna have all this content for Curse City professionally printed too, so that I can finally play that, because the aesthetics of that game always blew me away. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I just heard that it plays like shit. So between the fixes that Peter put in place, which are like fundamental, there's so much, it's completely altered, and the amount of expansion content and the type of expansion content, there's been a lot of kind of bitching and moaning about Curse City because of the expansions and the fact that they don't come with any models, which I think is totally valid, bitching and moaning. I'm not blowing it off. I'm just saying there's been a lot of harping on it. And the models that they do require are very expensive. And so Peter Cooper went out there and he made his own expansions, and he made them compatible with really easy to find, relatively inexpensive stuff, like the Warhammer Underworlds sets. So this is the Crimson Court for Dire Chasm, and it comes with 4 amazing looking vampire miniatures that you use in his set of expansions, and so much cheaper than trying to buy this stuff, trying to hunt down Radikar the Beast alone is like a $50 miniature. That whole set was, it was 20% off, so it was like $35. So really amazing stuff that the community is doing with these games, and I'm all about it. So going back to Warhammer Quest, like, look at all these flonking cards. So many. The Lucky Talisman, the Orb of Power, and the fan content, the White Dwarf content, all the additional content to this stuff is of such high quality that I can't even tell the difference. I don't even know which cards are actually core and which are kind of made up. I mean, if you look at them, there's a level of visual consistency to them that is incredible. And so, and frankly, I really don't care, because all I care about is that they're awesome cards, and they're really high quality. They're nice and thick. They're nice and, they're just like exactly like the cards that you would get in a modern day board game, only I had these printed custom. So what do we got here? This looks like a gigantor deck of event cards. Another thing that I've been getting into related to Warhammer Quest is 3D printing. I have a buddy who has a Elegoo Mars, and when I started printing this stuff out, like I said, it includes monster cards for dozens and dozens of monsters that are not in the core set, like this scorpion or giant spider or goblin shaman, hobgoblins. And usually, and what I've done in the past is I have tried to hunt these cards down or these figures down on eBay, and in the past that was prohibitively expensive. Now it's hilariously expensive, ridiculously expensive, and so it's basically not doable anymore. So I decided instead to start 3D printing figures, and my buddy offered to do it for me if I bought the resin basically and the files. And so I'm printing just dozens and dozens and dozens of figures from a couple of very well-known, very incredible Patreons, for 3D printing files. I even have them right here, actually. I can show them off. I'll show one of them off. I might do a separate video on this. So, yeah, so there you go. This is not a GW created product. This is some dude designed this, and then another dude who happens to be my friend printed it in his freaking basement. And I think you can see that, like, the quality is absolutely insane. I've always stayed away from actual filament 3D printing because the quality is shit, at least in my experience. They have those shitty scan lines on them. I bought some Blackstone Fortress terrain that was printed on a filament printer, and I was never happy with how it turned out. But these resin printers are amazing, and it allows you to resurrect a game like this without spending $10,000 on what are, by modern day standards, pretty basic bitch miniatures. Moving on. Here we've got spell cards. 80 spell cards. Dazzle. Dome of Power. Drop. Feign Death. Again, these exist in the role-playing book, but they're on tables. These are like the spells that you would learn as you level up. But they're on tables, which means you don't have them in front of you, which means you're writing a lot of shit down. I mean, look at all the text on here. How the fuck are you going to write all that down on a piece of, on your player board or whatever? And so much rather have them ready to go. Beautiful, beautiful cards. MakePlayingCards.com prints some shit. Here we've got a couple of extra treasure cards that I couldn't fit into one kind of print package. And then we've got the Dark Secret cards, which is another mechanic that came out via White Dwarf. But again, the cards were, to my knowledge, were just shitty, like, cut them out yourself, from the magazines. So, and these are like hidden agendas, basically, that your characters can have. So that's it. That is my exciting journey into the realm of custom printing Warhammer Quest 1995 cards, and some backstory on how I got into Warhammer Quest and where I'm at with it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it wasn't too rambly. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's entirely possible that this is totally incoherent, but keep an eye on the channel. I'm going to have a lot of Warhammer Quest related content coming, I think. I'm going to do a Silver Tower playthrough probably today, because I love that game. I found a used copy of that on eBay recently. I could just get really lucky, not lucky, but I spent a lot of time researching and looking for a copy of a game like Silver Tower that is pretty old at this point and hard to get a hold of. And I got a perfect mint condition copy that was used off of eBay, and so, which is really important to me, that it be like perfect. I don't want something that's all torn up, or even slightly torn up. So I've been expanding my Warhammer Quest collection, and I'm probably going to be doing a lot of coverage of it. I also made this. I'll show you another Warhammer Quest related thing. Let's see. So these are all the miniatures for Cursed City, or for Silver Tower, and I have magnetized them. This is my first foray into magnetization for miniature storage. It's fucking amazing. This is a shitty little $10 craft box from Hobby Lobby, with a metal roofing, like piece of roofing, basically, that I bought in a big, roll and just cut out. And then I taped it down and glued it down. The tape is there because the edges of this are extremely sharp, and so I didn't want to reach in here and end up bleeding all over my miniatures. But man, I mentioned it in my Silver Tower unboxing that the problem with these games is that the miniatures are so delicate that even the custom foam that you can get to protect them really doesn't get it done, because little pieces stick to the edges of that foam and they pop off when you try to pull the miniature out if you're not ultra careful. And I just didn't think that was going to be sustainable long term. And so my same buddy who is printing the stuff for me mentioned that he had started doing something like this. He had magnetized his minis and thrown them into a box. And so I decided to take a swing at the same thing, and I couldn't be happier, because now these are so solidly in there. I can store this on the shelf like this right next to the box, and then that's it. I have just a box of minis, and the core box contains everything else. If I could do it again, I would probably clean this up. I might come up with a different format. I might even use a different box. I was thinking that these card boxes that I use for Shadows of Brimstone, which I will be using for Warhammer Quest as well, these are actually really good. You could run a piece of that metal on just one side of this and probably get most of those miniatures into here, and it's nice and deep, and they'd be ultra protected. But I'm still experimenting with that. But bottom line is, these miniatures ain't going nowhere, and I'm not going to break them taking them out of the box anymore. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, that's all I had. That's my Warhammer Quest ramble. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you later.